Hi everyone, this is my audience, and my topic today is tenure. Tenure is when teachers have a guaranteed job because they've worked at that certain job for an extended amount of time, so they are guaranteed not to lose their job. Tenure started as early as the 1800s. The National Education Association started the program to protect teachers' rights. Massachusetts was one of the first states to have this law, and New Jersey followed in suit in 1909 to have a tenure law. And after the Great Depression is when most teachers fought for tenure laws to protect their jobs. And it was not until the mid-1950s that most teachers had tenure. There are several reasons that tenure hurts our educational system. Some teachers no longer teach up to expectations because they know that they will not lose their jobs. This means that students have to start teaching themselves. If we were to eliminate tenure, students would be able to get superior education, and we would only employ teachers with exceptional teaching ethic. Freire once said, "Students can only learn as much as the teacher is willing to teach." This is a map of the length of time before it takes for a teacher to get tenure. Most states have now come up with the law that it takes 3 years at that teaching job to get tenure. We only have 2 states, Mississippi and Hawaii, that only require 1 year for a person to obtain tenure. And we only have one place, DC, that has no policy on tenure at all. Everyone else has the tenure law now. The problems with tenure is that teachers don't teach as well anymore, or they don't work as hard because they know that their job is guaranteed. They tend to not have as much enthusiasm as someone that knows their job is on the line. And new teachers coming into the profession, they have extreme enthusiasm because they're ready to get started. Their attitude may also change, knowing that they cannot be fired. They may not be as willing to help the student, and they may be rude when the student comes to ask a question because they know that their job is not on the line. If we eliminated tenure, we would be able to instill the fear that if you do not live up to our expectations, you may lose your job. Students are also now afraid to ask for help. If a student asks for help and the professor is rude, they may not be inclined to ask again, and their grades could decline due to that. Students may find their professor intimidating due to their attitude, and if they no longer have a helping attitude. And then this leads to students teaching themselves. In some aspects, students should begin to start teaching themselves in personal study and homework. But for the most part, that is what lectures are built for, so that the teacher can let them know what they know and expand their knowledge. They could also be using old learning styles. They're not all up to date because they have gotten old and they have slacked off due to them not needing the proper qualifications because they're not going to lose their job. This right here is a flowchart of the steps that it takes for a tenured teacher to get fired. As you can see, there's roughly 10 steps, and it is a very extensive process. They have made it very hard for a tenure to get fired, and so most places don't even try to fire them because it takes too much time and money. There are some counter arguments to tenure. This law keeps teachers from being fired for personal reasons. If you get a new boss or if you get a new coworker and they don't like you for petty reasons, tenure keeps it so that you don't get fired because of that. It also protects against ageism. That way, older teachers aren't just being fired because of their age and they're just hiring what's new and what's young. They're able to keep their job even though they are not the youngest and the newest teacher. Some solutions, if we were to keep tenure, is instead of keeping tenure, we have annual reviews to determine if they are still adequate. Also, students should also be allowed to review their teachers to determine whether a professor should stay. There is a site that already does this called Rate My Professor, and I personally, and I know several people that have used that, and it is a great source. I know I use it every semester to know which professor I want to take. And so if all students were able to review their teachers that way, then we wouldn't keep the teachers that are no longer adequate at their jobs. Teachers should have to keep up on new ways of teaching as well. Technology has come such a far way than people who started teaching 40, 50, even 10 years ago. So they should be able to maintain a progressive learning environment for this new generation to come. There are seminars also available online that show teachers new teaching methods. So even if you don't have a lot of time in your schedule, you can make a mandatory webinar that could take an hour out of your day to make a teacher a better teacher. In conclusion, when tenure was first established in the 1900s, it had great intentions of protecting teachers' rights. Unfortunately, over the years, tenure law has presented several unintended ramifications. Although it started out well, it has now been taken advantage of from many lazy professors, and therefore it is hindering our generation from learning and having the educational experience they deserve. Tenure may not be eliminated from our laws anytime soon, but tenured teachers should be watched closely to ensure that they are performing at maximum capacity. Thank you all, and thank you to my audience.